Welcome to Elevating La Cultura podcast, a space where I talk with Latinas who are passionate about what they do and are willing to share that passion with others to change the narrative, especially for the next generation. Each season is centered around different topics, but all with a Latina perspective. Welcome to Season 7. I'm so excited to share these stories and hope they will offer encouragement, wisdom, and be something that you can relate to. So vámonos, and let's get into it. Hola! I have a great conversation in store for you today, one that I've looked forward to sharing since we recorded. Nataly is a speaker, meditation facilitator, and journaling guide. She is on a mission to help people stay grounded through all phases, emotions, and unexpected life experiences. She is the founder of Stay Grounded, a brand dedicated to creating intentional journaling experiences by providing spaces where people not only journal to dive deeper into self-awareness, but also find time to play through different forms of art. She hopes to change the misconception of what meditation and journaling should look like and allow the world to open up to what it should feel like. She is also the host of the Stay Grounded podcast. We have an amazing conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, I am so excited to get this conversation started with Nataly today. Another amazing connection through Gita's Cafecito group, where we get together and co-work and then get to introduce ourselves and meet new people. So again, shout out to Kita. I am so excited to have her on the podcast in a future episode. But for now, I am excited to speak with Nataly. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Nataly. I am the founder of Stay Grounded. We sell intentional self-care tools. We're actually going to drop that collection in the summertime. So I'm really excited about our physical products being sold. It's going to consist of journals, a journaling prompt deck, two of those, and transparent sticky notes. And we're also going to work on a couple of tote bags and fun things that people use intentionally, throughout their lives. We also do very fun and interactive journaling workshops, which is what we surround ourselves by. We love to build community and really help people come back and ground themselves right through these practices like meditation, journaling. And another fun thing we do is we collaborate with a lot of really cool artists. So I've collaborated with cannabis spaces. I've collaborated with yoga instructors. I've collaborated with sound healers, even DJs that, come in and bring the music to the actual event. That's really what we strive to do, is bring very fun and different interactive experiences for people. And as far as me, I am from a Salvadorian mother and a Colombian father. Grew up very, very with my Colombian side of my family. It is now recently, and it's funny that you mentioned Kita. Since I've met Kita, I've been meeting a lot more Salvadorian women, which is amazing, because I this year, really one of my goals was to connect with more Latinas, more people that can really relate to, I guess, what I'm going through, my struggle as an entrepreneur and as trying to kind of build this empire and kind of get out of this unlearning of a lot of things that I was taught as a young girl that were not possible for me. But I recreated that story in my head, and now I feel like I'm living some of my manifestations. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me, about what I do. I love helping people. I'm the opposite I know some people say, oh, I need to recharge by myself. I recharge with human connection. That is my thing. I love talking to people, getting to know them, what they do, what they're about. And that's why Stay Grounded was born, really. It was out of my love for people, helping people. And, there was a time period in my life where I was struggling with anger and just being not the best version of myself, and just a lot of experiences that I was going through in my personal life. And once I sought out these practices, they've really healed me. And so I want to be able to share that with the world.
I think right now is a time where we're realizing that we weren't grounded. I think coming out of the pandemic, we were pushed into this new way of living and showing up, a lot of transitions. And especially as business owners, we had to transition a lot of things online or we couldn't survive. And with that, there was a lot of uncertainty too, with like the state of all of our health, the disparities that we saw within our community. And now I'm realizing, or just seeing in conversation, that in 2023, like after 2+ years of this uncertainty and like what is going on, um, we are now seeing the importance of being grounded and actually taking the time to learn what that means. Uh, I don't know if I heard about staying grounded or what that even meant until we were in the pandemic and people started talking about it. Um, so I think this work is necessary, especially now. And I think that, especially in the Latina community, we need more representation, because I've heard, like, especially whenever we're talking about two generations, like communicating with the generation before us, there's a lot of misconception or like even misinformation when it comes to self-care and even like being able to show up for yourself and what that means. And there can be a lot of disconnect. And um, I would love to know how you have gone through that process of learning what being grounded means for you and how you can communicate that with others that might not share the same thoughts or others that might not even understand what that even means.
Yeah. Staying grounded. Well, just to start, it's a journey and it's not linear and it looks different for everyone. And there's never an end point. And that's one of the things that I really want to express to people. Just because as human beings, we really try to strive for a goal, right? We try to get somewhere, and that's where we think we're okay or we've made it or whatever it is in that situation. But staying grounded is more of like writing the things that bring you joy. For example, I've done like journaling sessions with people where I'm like, what do you enjoy? And it's hard for people to write what they enjoy. Like they don't know what their joys are. Like what brings you happiness? Does a cup of tea and doing a puzzle bring you happiness? Does like, coloring? Does maybe watching TV, not in excess, but like maybe watching a show, binge watching a show, does that bring you groundedness? Meditation? Does being in community? So my suggestion for people that are kind of looking to go in this path of being grounded, um, write a list of things that bring you joy. That is like, it's the simplest, and people are like, oh, that's so silly. No, it's a self discovery prompt, right? Where you're able to really see the things that bring you joy, that bring you peace. I remember when I first started my journey, I was like this very angry person, like just always sad, anxious all the time. I thought, it's so funny. I think about it now. I'm like, I thought that being anxious and waking up like that was normal because I had been doing it for so many years that I'm like, this is what it is. Like there's no other way to live. And then I remember in 2017, my parents had gone through a pretty bad like separation after 30 years of marriage. And I was getting out of this very, very extremely toxic relationship. And I just remember like I woke up and I was tired of being tired. I was just like, this sucks. Like, this can't be it. Right. And again, I'd already always enjoyed writing. And so like journaling was like a thing that I'd always kind of done. But I started to get kind of deeper with my practice. And this is what I mean by, when you're intentional about getting grounded, these are the things you need to start. This is like a self discovery, like you're getting to know yourself in this. And that means you're getting serious, right? So my first step was, okay, well, let me start meditating because everybody had recommended meditation. And I'll be completely honest, for the first like 3 to 6 months of meditation, I hated it. It was awful. Like, because I didn't know what I was doing, because silencing the mind is just, it's really impossible. It's not like a thing that us humans can really do. But there's just this art in kind of sitting with yourself day after day. I started to realize it wasn't really about the meditation. It was about the way that I was showing up for myself. And so that's what allowed me to be grounded. Allowing yourself, let's say, okay, maybe I want to be healthier, right? And that's going to help you ground, and that's going to help you like have more energy. So there needs to be like this commitment, this unwavering commitment to yourself. Like they're just, even if there is a day that you don't want to wake up, make sure you're waking up for you, because the way that you show up just expresses how you show up for other people. And I very much learned that through this experience, in that 2017, everything that I was going through. Like, I was angry with other people. I, was not reciprocating the love that I was being given by friends, by family. I was always the angry one in my family. And I started like to wonder if like that was something that I could just, I didn't want to be identified as that anymore. I didn't want to be identified as this angry person. And then when I started to show up for myself and I wrote the list of joys, and then it's not only about writing, it's about actioning. I need to emphasize that to people. You can write as much as you want, and that's beautiful, and that's great to write and be expressive. But if you're not actioning the things that you need to do in order to show up for yourself, the grounding is just, it's never going to show up. It's never going to come. You're never going to have this moment of like, oh, finally, I'm feeling okay. Because part of the work is 80% is showing up. Just like they say at the gym, like 80% is the food. You can like go to the gym, 7 days a week, and you're eating McDonald's every day, and you're just, you still have to do that 80% of eating healthy in order for this 20% to work. And so that's exactly how being grounded, I guess, really works. Writing the things, getting to know yourself is that 20%, right? Like just the little things, the joys, the happiness, and then actioning those joys and happiness is the 80%, because it allows you to get in tune with yourself, your body, your mind, your soul, your even the people outside. I don't react the same as I used to. Like, I remember I used to just react. And these techniques that I've used, and again, they could look different for everybody. These are the ones that I personally use. I meditate, I drink even if it's just like a cup of coffee in the morning, and that's your 10 minutes to be away from your phone, or be away from people. That is a way of you showing up for yourself. So being grounded is getting to know you, writing the things that bring these joys and happiness, like I said, and then actioning them. And it's up to you to decide what that is, and to just show up as, it allows you to be your most authentic self. And I think that's like a beautiful thing that happens when you slowly start to do it, right? And I'm kind of getting on this tangent, but the people want to start, there's another thing that comes with groundingness. Like, people want it to, we're human beings and we want things to come like this. And so we want, if we're meditating one day and it doesn't work, we're like, well, it sucks. I'm not doing it. But being grounded and showing up for yourself takes time, and it takes consistency. And maybe don't start 7 days a week, right? But maybe start two, commit to those 2 days. Let's say Tuesday and Thursday, where in the morning time, nighttime, whatever it is, you're showing up for you. And there's this thing with your brain that starts to program, like, oh, okay, if you do it for like 2-3 weeks, then your brain's gonna be like, okay, Tuesday and Thursdays, those are my days. And you start to look forward to them. You really do. You're like, oh, okay, like Tuesdays and Thursdays are my day. So you're more productive and intentional with your time too. Um, so stay grounded through getting to know yourself, journaling, and actioning.
I think that as technology advances and makes things easier for us, we want things like now. Like we want to see the we want to get to the endpoint like as soon as we start.
Yep. I couldn't agree more with that. I was actually one of those people that always wanted things. If things didn't happen like within a month, I was like, oh, this sucks. I'm moving on. Like, because we just want that instant gratification of things happening for us. But, these people that are in a good place, whether it's professionally, relationships, like any type, financially, it's probably taken some time. It's taken some practice. It's taken some like consistency. And I always tell my clients, like, guys, start small. Like, don't, let's say you want to lose weight and you are striving to go to the gym 7 days a week. Like, you're going to give up. You are going to give up because you're shocking yourself and your body and saying like you're going from one of doing nothing to another of doing everything. And so that in between is actually a really sweet, like soft space to start, like 2, 3 times a week. And then your body kind of starts to catch up and your brain starts to catch up too. And then once those two combine, then you can start maybe the 5 days a week. Then there's just like this thing that you're like, okay, I did 3 days a week for let's say 2 months. Let's bump it up to 4. And there's just this beauty in kind of slowly, kind of even gradually seeing your progress, which people don't notice. Um, but you start to see your progress when you start things slowly. You don't necessarily have to go from 0 to 100. But I agree. I feel like I was actually talking to a client like this past week, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna cut all you know, meat and bad food." And I'm just like, you can't. You can like you give yourself like a 1 day a week where you have like an ice cream because then your body's gonna like just be in shock. So I always recommend with any practice, it's a muscle, anything, meditation, yoga, running, walking, I don't know, walking your pet, whatever it is. These are things that come with practice and slowly starting them, because otherwise you're you're setting yourself up for failure, unfortunately, when that happens. I've seen it a lot with clients of mine.
Yeah, going back to meditation, I when you said that it took you like or you've been doing it for like 3 to 6 months and you still had were like in your um beginning journey, I was like, "Dang, I tried it for maybe like a week and was like, I don't know." So, I mean, I too am one of those people uh that has that well, now talking to you, I'm like, "Man, I really should give it a chance and take it seriously." Because a lot of times when you're starting out, especially with meditation, you're like, why am I doing this? Because, like you said, it's hard to quiet your mind and to actually know what you're doing unless, like, someone is there guiding you to what you need to think. And I've done a few meditation practices in therapy, but like I have the help of someone guiding me through what I should be focusing on. So that is something that, okay, maybe I'm convicted. Okay, I need to.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe you want to just do it. There's guided meditations. I always recommend for people to do guided. Maybe don't do if you can't do 15 minutes, do 10, and have somebody's voice guide you because it's kind of like the same as having a therapist. It's obviously not, but in terms of having a human being kind of guide you, it's how I started, and I used to be hard on myself and say I had to do it every single day. But then once I cut down to only doing it 3 times a week, and then for the 3 months, I mean, don't get me wrong, after 3 months, I still like thought it sucked, but I was intrigued by the way it was making me feel. Like I was starting to see the difference, and I was starting to see how grounded I was becoming, right? And then I started to incorporate 4 days a week, and I've pretty much maintained that consistency throughout. And it's been what, like 6 years, I think, almost, since I started meditating. And not every week looks the same, but I do recommend just starting small, taking the time and giving it a chance. I know I was talking to someone I'm collaborating with, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not into meditation. I was like, well, how long have you meditated?" And she was like, "Well, I don't know. I just did it for like, I think I did it like 2 or 3 times, and it just sucked." And I'm like, it's supposed to suck because it's uncomfortable. Like, if it was comfortable, everybody in the world would be doing it, and then imagine what our world would look like, you know? But there's something about sitting with yourself that not only calms you, but I've learned throughout the years that it brings up feelings that you are not going to like. Um, and that comes with consistency, right? And starting small. So I love that you kind of called yourself out. You're like, I'm one of those people, but give it, yeah, I would recommend you give it a chance. Just not as like 7 days a week, 5 days a week, because that's a lot for someone that is just starting out. Maybe once a week works for you, maybe twice. You're like, okay, maybe at the beginning of the week and at Friday when I end the work week or whatever it is. And you're going to start seeing the showing up. You're going to be so proud of yourself for showing up. There's like this boost in self-esteem too that comes with that. So I highly recommend that you do get on that practice. No pressure, but but I always recommend it.
I know. And dang, I have an Apple Watch and it reminds me to like take a minute to breathe. And I always
Yeah.
snooze.
See, that's, yep.
Yep.
And that's like another thing, like just that's the consistency that's the that that push that you do, that you make for yourself, because it's hard to show up for you. It's easy. It's so funny. It's easy for people to show up for others. It's easy. Like you, let's say your mom called you today and you're like, okay, I'll be there. But to show up for yourself day in and day out, it's like a struggle. And I think it's like also um, in the Latino community, you're so bound to, like, you have to give, 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 give. You have, as a woman, you wear all these hats. Like, you have to serve, like, you have to be a mom, you have to be a business owner, you have to be a breadwinner, you have to clean the house. Like, just all these, like, roles that you consistently have to play. And I think that is another reason why it's so hard for our Latinas to show up for themselves. It's very hard because growing up, they've always taught us that we have to give, that it's always about the men or about giving to your children or giving back to your job, where it's like, well, then where do we pour into ourselves? And how do we not reach burnout when we're always giving, giving, giving? And that's one of the things that I've been trying to unlearn in the last couple of years. How to unlearn that I don't always have to serve, that it's okay to rest and maybe not do anything on a Sunday, because that is hard. Like, girl, just like, especially as an entrepreneur and you having to do like all the moving parts, having a full-time job, like just doing it all. Like sometimes it's hard, and I'm like, I feel guilt for resting, but resting is a birthright. It's like you should, like, you deserve to rest so that you can show up authentically yourself and energized for other people. And I think that's sadly something that happens a lot in our community. I see it a lot in my mom too, and my aunt, in, like, just a lot of Latino communities where it's like having to, like, even it's as simple as, like, even when we're in a family event, having to serve the men, like everybody, and then you serve yourself. And then I'm like, what? I'm like, they have 2 feet and they have 2 legs, and thank God that they were given that, and they should get up, but they're just so accustomed to cooking, serving, and then we have to clean it all. Like, what's that? Like, what? Like, we just did the whole party and they just sat down. You know, it's like crazy.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things that like our generation is unlearning. And I think you touched on a big part of that when you talked about feelings. And I think that's why this conversation is so scary because we were
Yeah.
taught to not feel. Like we were
Yep.
guilted if we were um, feeling anxious or
Yep.
depressed because we weren't doing
Mhm.
enough to fix ourselves. We
Mhm.
were uh, shamed into presenting ourselves as happy and like we should be grateful. So there's nothing to be upset or sad about. And
Yeah.
so we just learn to like block all these feelings, including the good ones. And I think that's why it's so hard for us to actually pinpoint like the things that bring us joy because we weren't allowed
Mhm.
to like embrace that because it was like, oh, well, that is like if a creative outlet brought you joy, like, okay, well, that's like not useful. How are you getting money? Like, you need to pursue
Mhm.
things that are gonna
Oh my
like,
God.
and
Yeah.
so it's especially as women, like we are doing so much unlearning. And I think that is part of why we're craving this groundedness and
Mhm.
craving just a new mindset because we are tired. Like, I think that generations pass down traumas to the next
Yes.
generation if they
Mhm.
don't do anything to heal it. And so we're
Mhm.
not only carrying our own uh, tiredness, we're carrying that for from
Ugh.
generations past.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And you literally, I felt the tiredness as you were saying this from like carrying it from all our generations. Like, it's so true. And you know what's so funny? Something you said, they, it's not realistic, right? So I remember, I think I must have been 6. And I told my mom, I was with my mom and my aunt, and I remember telling my mom, Mom, I want to be an actress. Like, I want, like all kids, like, I want to be an actress. And I'm like, and I remember her saying, well, that's not realistic. And then I remember my aunt, she's always been like the positive person, the always like pouring energy. And she was like, no, that is realistic. It's just hard work. You have to understand that if you want to pursue that creative art, it is work. Whereas, like my mom, because of her generation, she had been shunned from that. There was no way that I could do something creative. And growing up, I always felt like there was this creative thing inside me that I wanted to help people, but I was never given the I guess the open arms to do that. And so, of course, us as Latina women, we want to make our parents proud. And so I went to school, I graduated college, I got a bachelor's, and then I applied to law school. I got into law school, and then when I finally realized, like, oh my God, like this sucks. Like, I don't want to go to law school. Like, this sucks. It was just this fight because, oh my God, like, how could you not go to law school? Like, basically, to them, I was already going to be made, and to me, I was walking into the worst decision of my life. And what they would say to me was, be realistic, and I don't think it comes from this place of them not loving us. I think it very much comes from a place of safety, of them wanting what's safe for us, when in reality we live in a time where getting uncomfortable is where it's at. Like, that's where it's at. Getting uncomfortable, trying new things. Like, I always tell my mom that now. Like, I always try to tell her, like, explain to her how I felt as I was when I was younger. And I tell her, like, now I'm learning that I can make money from my art. I can have a creative outlet. And just because it doesn't look the way that they want it to look doesn't mean it's not realistic. And I think for her, it was very hard to comprehend at the beginning. And then once she realized as I was older, she kind of was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Like, I just really thought that I was doing the right thing. And again, there's guilt and shame, right, that come with that. Like that, this feeling like, no, mom, like, I don't want you to feel like that. It's just that for me, I'm breaking generational cycles that they're not your fault, but they're my responsibility to change. I always say that. Like, it's a big saying of mine. Like, what happens to you is never your fault, but it is always your responsibility to change it. And I think that's this time of our lives, like Latinas are really doing it. Like we're just like we're getting uncomfortable. We're breaking generational like traumas. We're becoming financially abundant because we can, because growing up we really didn't have any money. Um and now I feel like in such a secure financial space and I'm like, oh my God, like I did that. It is possible for me to have this financial freedom when it was taught that I could never have it. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's a mic drop right there.
That's a mic drop. I love it.
Yeah, this conversation is amazing. And I'm so thankful that we're able to speak openly about it, and that hopefully the more we bring this conversation to the open, the more people will start accepting it as their own, like in their own lives. Um, is there, when you were making the decision to what you said, like stop being angry, I'm curious at like if you could walk us through that experience, because I too was also labeled as angry. And I remember like, and it just made me angrier. But I remember like when I was little, like younger, teenager, I guess, we were at Disney World or Disneyland or some, I always get them mixed up. The one in Florida. Um, and my mom bought me this tank top with Grumpy on it, like the dwarf. And she was just like, this is for you and this is yours because you're always enojada. And it was just like a label that I accepted because I thought it's like, when you're told so often that you're one thing and then you believe it and you're just like, well, let me just lean into it. And that was something that I was always confused about because I didn't want to be angry. I just felt like I wasn't understood or listened to or appreciated, or like, I don't know. I was so young. I didn't have the emotional intelligence to describe what I was feeling. And so it just came across as anger, and that narrative was perpetuated. And yeah, at some point, like I don't remember, but I was just like, I don't want to be labeled as this. Probably when I went away to college, that I was just like, okay, whatever. Um, and still, like comments will come up, but I'm sure other people can relate. And so I'd love for you to share that experience and that story when you decided to say like, okay, that's enough. I'm not gonna play into that anymore.
Yeah, I love that you said they kind of labeled us. I was always known as the angry one too, and like I unconsciously like took that role, and I was like, all right, well, if I'm the angry one, I'm gonna play this role and like just kill it. Um, so I can totally relate to that, and I again, like even you telling me your story about having the grumpy, like I that made me so sad because I felt like they labeled you so badly that you were like, I guess I'm the grumpy one. When in reality, for example, I'm a middle child, and so I have two brothers, and I've realized this past year and a half that for me, I was always like the angry one or the because I was always the responsible one. So, oh, Nataly got it. She's okay. Like, she's okay because I was the middle child and like I always tried to be the strong one. And like, so I unconsciously just wanted people to listen to me or to give me attention. Not that my parents never did, but like there was this difference, right? Like in the older one and then the baby, and then it was me. So I very much learned. I think, again, I always go back to 2017 because that really is when it changed. I started to lose a lot of friends. I started to Not my family not really wanting to be around me because everything was an argument. I kind of got, I even got tired of being in my own presence. Like, I was just like, this sucks. Like, I'm losing friends. I'm like losing people that I love. And like, it has to be me. Like, it can't be anyone else. And so when I started to take the responsibility of how I was feeling and acknowledging, because acknowledgement is a huge thing, when I started to acknowledge that I definitely didn't want to be labeled anymore, it's when I started to take the small steps into changing. And it was not easy. Like, it took me years to take that label off of myself. And I recently, actually, a cousin of mine, she lived in Colombia, came back to live here, and we've been hanging out more, of course, like, we were always very close. And she just looks at me and she's like, you've changed so much. Like, just because I hadn't seen her in so long. She's seen me, but in like periods, like when you go visit and like come back, whatever. And she's like, you've changed so much. Like, I just remember how different you were. And there was just like, I mean, I know you don't want to seek validation from other people and it always has to come internally, but it was just like, oh, like, thank you. Like, thank you for validating that I have changed, that the work that I've done for years has finally, like, people are seeing it. And, those friends that I lost started to come back into my life, because I started to change. I started to have better relationships with my brothers, with my cousins, with, the people that were around me, even my mom. Because I'm very I guess in my anger, quote unquote, because I don't want to label it, but like my dad and I are very similar. And I remember it used to trigger me when people told me, you're just like your dad. You're always going to be like your dad. And I'm just like, what? Like, and then that would, like you said, that would make me even more angry. And I'm just like it would just like piss me off. And I'm not him. And so that was another thing that really motivated me. It was not wanting to be labeled and not wanting to be compared to another person, because I'm an individual. And so I just remember just in 2017 just being so over it. Like, I remember I was just crying a lot from a lot of the losses that I was feeling, and just like, I don't want to be this person with people anymore. And when I took the responsibility and I started to take accountability for my own shit, it's when things started to change for me. Like I said, it took a long time. It did. Um, I didn't really feel the change until 2, 3 years in. Like, it must have happened before, right? Because I was still in this progress, but you don't start to really feel it. You step back and you're like, wow, like, I did a lot. You don't really notice it until there's progress has been made and things have been done. And that again comes with the little steps, just the little steps that I took to not feel angry anymore. And when that did arise, kind of learning, and I learned this through meditation and techniques, stepping back and seeing, what is it about this situation, this person, what are they saying that's really triggering me? Because, and there are situations where you can't do that. But let's say I used to be the person that I would text you crazy, like, I didn't care about your feelings. And then I'm like, you know what? I react. So when I am upset, angry, whatever it is, I know, because I got to know myself, that I need to step back. Like, I won't answer if I'm in a situation where I'm angry or mad, or I won't answer. And the other person can be triggered, but like, I will not answer, because I know myself that I will say very mean things. And to avoid that, and to not play into that role that I've been given, that label, I step back so I can take myself out of it. And so it was really about this awareness once I started to practice all of these things, because I just got tired of being tired, like, I got tired of being labeled. Like, now it's funny, I'm not the angry one. Like, it's just been like, yeah, I'm the girl that has boundaries, but there's such a difference. There's like a difference between someone that has the boundaries and is, in her steps in her truth, as to a person that reacts and speaks and is angry all the time. And so I remember, I think it was in 2019. Yeah, in 2019, I got fired from this law firm position that I had. And usually, if something like that happened to me, I'd be in panic mode. I'd be like, oh my God, like I would want to be angry at them. And like, and then I remember, and that's when I knew that I changed because they let me go because they wanted me to, you know, have more responsibilities as a manager without more pay, which makes absolutely no sense. I stepped in my truth, and then I remember them letting me go. I hung up, and then I panicked for like 3 seconds. I was like, oh my heart started to race, and then I was like, no. I was like, breathe, like just step back. Don't email. I was gonna email angry, like just do all the things angry, and then I stepped back, and I was like, no. I was like, what am I angry about? Like, yeah, they let me go, but there's this big world out there, and I'm sure I'm going to get another job. And I think I'm going to be okay because at this present moment, I feel safe. I'm safe. Yeah, maybe I lost my job, but I live in a nice home. And like I started to say my gratitudes. I live in a nice home. My mother and my father are here. I have amazing brothers. And I started to calm myself down. And that's when I was like, wow, like all these years, these 2 years that I've been practicing all these little things have finally made sense. And I didn't react, which was huge for me. I was like, oh my God, I was like, I changed. Like I just was like giving myself a pat on the back for that moment. And I look back on it and it was such a 5 minute thing that you just kind of like move on from it. You're like, okay, my life, you move on, but then you look back on it and you're like, wow, um, I'm so happy that I started these practices 2 years before because it allowed me to be centered during these awful experiences that could have triggered me.
That is such a great story. And I hope that gives the listeners and other people hope that this is why it's so important to do the work in understanding where you're at in your life and moving to a place where you can really understand who you are and who you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to tell our audiences like, this is how it worked for me. It doesn't necessarily have to be this way for everyone. There's no linear way of connecting with yourself. There's some people that do it through the gym. There's some people that, they like to go to art shows, to galleries. Like maybe that's where you ground. Maybe it's watching TV at home. Maybe it's meditating in the park. Like it just, uh, it doesn't look linear for anyone. So I just want you guys to remember that. Like you can always find ways to ground. It's just about knowing what sets you off, first of all, and what things calm you during those times. Like stepping back, maybe not answering a text message angry. Maybe it's okay, I need to talk to my mom or to my girl. Like, we need to have a conversation about this. Maybe that's where your balance is. And so, just a reminder because I love reminding people because sometimes there's so much information out there that like sometimes it's just like it's impossible and people think that okay, I have to meditate every day in order to be this like calm, holistic person, but that's not true. That's not true. It's not true, and it's not true for everyone. And so it's just a sweet reminder that it's not linear and it can look different for everybody. And it's about choosing what really works for you. And I think that's really important in the journey of getting to know yourself too.
That is great advice. I think for a long time, we have, at least me, when I've thought about this type of work and grounding and meditation, like the things that I see in the media and on social media, like it's
Mm-hmm.
always very white presenting. And
Yes.
it's very like even thinking about yoga, it's like the thin like Lululemon
Yes.
and like white, blonde, blue eyes. And
Mm-hmm.
when I think about myself, I'm like, I don't look like that. So maybe that's just not for me, especially if
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it modeled as I was growing up. So
Absolutely.
I'm so thankful that you are bringing more representation into this space.
Yes. Oh my God, thank you. And that's one of the things that this year, for example, it's important for me to build my Latina community. This is like one of my biggest goals this year. It's how we met. Like, it's very important for me because I with our workshops, we also incorporate meditations, and I want to put out the message that meditation doesn't have to look the same for everyone. You know, last night actually when I was meditating, when I got home and I was meditating, I needed to have my feet up in the wall because I just feel like I needed like circulation in my body. And that's okay. Maybe tomorrow I need to lean against a wall. Maybe no, maybe I don't need support. Maybe sleeping, maybe laying down is like what I need. And I think meditation is more of getting to know what you need at the moment, right? Like acknowledging what you need. And that took me years too, because I thought that again, this white culture like makes it seem like perfect and like but it's just not like that. It's not real. Like it's not reality for everybody that meditates. And maybe your meditation, for example, is a prayer. You know what I mean? Like maybe it doesn't look like a meditation where you want to be guided by somebody. Maybe you just want to have a conversation with God or whoever your higher power is, and there's a beauty in that too. Because you're still cleansing, you're still decluttering your mind. It's just in a different way, and it doesn't have to look the same for everyone. And so that's also a mission of mine, to get a lot more of, our Latina community involved in that. And because it is so hard for us to step back and care for ourselves. So it's like finding these spaces where we can create these amazing workshops so people can communicate with each other, connect, not feel alone in that this is not a linear, you know, way. There's just no linear way of doing this. So um, I'm very excited to bring more of our community, and I am aiming and trying to really reach out to brands that can, all women, all Latina women. Like I'm trying to push more of that agenda for us because it's important, especially our children. Um, like I'm actually in the summertime taking a course to guide children into meditation because I think there's just this power in teaching also our young girls that, and our boys too. I don't want to leave them out because, there is this like also this culture with Latino men that they can't be emotional and like all these things that we need to reteach, I guess, our children. Um, so I'm hoping to actually open up that platform for children as well, and like, you know, and helping them, hopefully just getting them to a space where they don't get to my age and I was feeling all this anger, where it's like we can help them from the beginning, and we can guide them into not controlling but analyzing and feeling their feelings through this practice.
That's going to be so great. My next question was going to be, what are your big goals for the year? I know you just touched a little bit on them, but I know that we're like in the spring. And so right now we're planning for the rest of the year. So is there anything that I can be cheering you on or that we can be looking forward to from you?
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna be launching our products this summer. We are in the works of talking to manufacturers and getting all that behind the scenes good stuff going. They are very much inspired by coffee table designs and just being able to just leave something as simple. I actually have one here. I mean, I know people can't probably see it, but it's like just these very minimal like designs that you can put anywhere and still use them, right? Another thing, like I said, is I'm gonna be doing the course for teaching children to meditate because that's a whole other like ball game. They're very different and they're all over the place. They don't want to necessarily stay still. So I'm going to be doing that, and then I'm also going to be learning sound healing so that I can incorporate in my workshops. So those are three things. And of course, building community. Like, but that's been like the goal, and I've been doing that. And so, aside from that, those are really three big goals that I have. Um, as far as like to build myself, to help the world, and to also build my brand. Those are the three things you guys can look out for. And of course, events. We will be hosting, it's a little quietish now, but during summer, fall, and winter will be very loud with events. Everything behind the scenes, I'm sure takes time, and talking to people. And sometimes it's not about putting your face out in everything. It's about stepping back and connecting with people and curating these very intentional, beautiful events, and then coming out, right? So that's like the kind of like the ever that I'm in, I guess you can say right now, stepping back a little bit in order to take three steps forward. So those are the things that I'm currently and I'm hoping to work on this year.
Yes, and if I can influence you, you should come to Chicago and do an event.
Yeah, I love Chicago, by the way. Loved it. I went for, I think it was like a week. I was like, oh my God, I went in July. I was like, I could live here. Like, I loved it. And then I realized how cold it gets, but I loved Chicago. Like everything about it. I feel like it's a much calmer New York City.
Yeah.
Like much calmer. With very good food. You
Yes.
guys have really good food. But yeah, I'm definitely going to, we do plan on expanding and collaborating with people in other states. So you guys can definitely stay tuned for that. Hopefully one of our stops will be Chicago, um, with collaborators out there. But yeah, that's thank you for the suggestion. I think building community outside of where I am is a big goal of mine. So, which is why building community is important. Even this, like our connection, you're from Chicago, I'm from New York City, and like we're on this podcast talking, that's special.
Yeah, for sure. And then what is one piece of advice that you would give to the next generation?
One piece of advice I would give, um, try it all and make mistakes. Like, there's nothing that you shouldn't try if it calls you. Maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't, but there's nothing wrong with trying and experimenting, and not making life all about work, right? There's the beauty in doing and trying, and I very much learned that all on my own. I had to, but I would hope that our future generations are just more inspired to go and take that painting class, go and produce the music, go and start that brand that maybe it won't work out, but that's okay. When you fail, it means you're taking good steps forward. So my advice would be just try it all, like, and don't be afraid.
Yeah, I know. I need to take that advice too.
Try it, girl. It's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so where can people connect with you and find you online?
So you can connect with us through Instagram. It is __ stay grounded. Somebody stole my name, so I have to do the underscores. Um, and you can follow us on, our website by subscribing. We do a really cool monthly newsletter. It is nothing like structured. It's just like, hey guys, this is what's happening in my life. What's up? Like, like I just am very personal, and then you get a lot of freebies. You get to know about anything that's happening first, and discounts and all that fun stuff. So it's like a little community that I'm building. It's www.stayinggrounded.com. You can follow us there, and yeah, book us for your events. Like, we'd love to, whether you work for like a corporate company and you feel like you guys need help in, providing more self-care and a work-life balance, we do that as well. So just reach out. You can, if you're interested in collaborations, please feel free. I love collaborating with artists. So if you're ever in a mood of like, hey, I want to collaborate with this person, like, please reach out to us. We'd love that.
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, a perfect way to end the day. We're recording in the evening, and I
Yes.
feel very calm
Yeah, right.
and
Me too. Thank you
like,
for having me. I appreciate it. This has been amazing. I love it.
yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we will chat soon, probably in another co-working
Yes,
hangout.
absolutely. We'll definitely talk soon.
All right. Bye. What a great conversation. I'm so thankful that Nataly shared so vulnerably, as I think it's a story that many can relate to. Be encouraged to keep pouring into yourself by learning the best ways that you can stay grounded and find joy in your day-to-day life. Okay, amigos, there'll be a new episode every Tuesday, so after you listen, feel free to take a screenshot and share on Instagram and tag at Elevating La Cultura or send me a DM. You can always comment on our YouTube video if you're watching online. I always like to hear from people and how they resonate with the stories that I share. So leave a review on Apple Podcasts so we can get more ears listening to these stories and we can continue elevating La Cultura. And if you haven't joined yet, join the Facebook group where we can continue the conversations we have on the podcast. And sometimes I go live spontaneously, so if you're wanting another way to connect with me and go deeper on the episodes and talks we have on the podcast, join us on Facebook. All right, enjoy the rest of the day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week. Bye.